Ravens flock. The flock rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. So I'm telling you now, it's about to go down. The podcast, the flock rundown. Ravens, baby. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
Appreciate you, Ray. What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Eric DeCosta just got done speaking with reporters outside. It was a little bit of a different setup. It was just kind of him speaking with reporters outside, huddled up, rather than the official press conference. But he spoke on the J.K. Dobbins contract situation. He spoke about Lamar Jackson seem a little bit different this year. He spoke about Trey Lance and the reports that we were interested in trading for him. He spoke about cap space and potential future trades. So there's a lot to get into. Let's dive right into it. Here is Eric DeCosta speaking on the J.K. Dobbins contract situation.
We love J.K. When he's played, he's been a warrior. He's played through injuries when he's been able to. Very talented guy, great attitude. He's a leader. I think he's respected. I've got a strong affinity for him personally, and we're very excited he's back. He's healthy this year. He looks great, and he's ready to go. When I was growing up as a young scout, I had the chance to see players like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Jamal Lewis and guys like that. And I could see how those guys could take over games. And so I understand the argument about running backs and some other positions as well. I think there's definitely some wisdom to who you pay and when you pay those players. On the other hand, we want to try and get as many good players as we can on the team.
And another note to add that wasn't on video that some reporters were tweeting out is that they're keeping the contract talks in-house between him and J.K. Dobbins. But he did touch on the running back situation as a whole and just how important it is to keep talented players on your team. You know, we know that the running back market's declining. That's a fact across the entire league. The market is what it is. The Ravens just going to have to play the game, right? So, I mean, if right now the top of the market is $12 million, I'd say, something like that. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley getting that. Maybe Jonathan Taylor, if he can re-up, can get like $13 million. I think $14 million is like the absolute highest. So with JK's injury history, if he were to get a deal right now, I think a fair deal might be like $7 million a year. That would be fair for him, for the team. If he balls out this year, maybe he can fetch up to 10 or so. But, I mean, it just depends. That's what the market is, right? It's not anything on JK. It's not a knock on JK. But the Ravens have all the leverage in this situation. We've been saying that for months. With J.K. Dobbins' injury history and the fact that he still has another year left, the Ravens are kind of in the driver's seat when it comes to paying J.K. Dobbins right now or waiting. They could wait to see if he can have a healthy season, to see how productive he is. I think if he's healthy, he's going to be productive. I mean, we know J.K. Dobbins is extremely talented, so I don't think that that's a question. It's just a matter is, can he play a full season? Can he have a full productive season? That's definitely the biggest question, and if J.K. doesn't lower his price to whatever the Ravens are potentially offering or interested in, then they're going to let him play it out. They're going to say, go play, and we'll pay you a little bit more next year, or you can test free agency and get a bigger deal. In my personal opinion, I think an extension is going to get done mid-season. I think that JK is going to be here for another 2, maybe 3 years at the most. But I just think that they can get him for a nice value right now. It is a risk that he is going to stay healthy. I totally understand that. But it's also a risk letting him play this year, and then he has a fully healthy season and balls out, and now he's worth 10, 12 million to another team. So I think they can get an extension done. We know JK wants to be here, and I think we want him to be here. I think DeCosta wants him to be here. It's just that contract has to be right. That price point has to make sense for the team. And then also JK's obviously got to be cool with it to accept it. So they're still talking. I think they're going to continue to talk based on what JK was saying the other week. He's not going to end holdouts like Lamar did last year. So I still think an extension will get done at some point. Eric DeCosta also touched on cap space and possible restructures to be able to clear more room and always have money available. And he said, we're doing all that. You know, the Ravens are right against the cap right now. I think they might even be like $1 million over. So a restructure or two is definitely coming. And the most obvious restructure candidates are probably Marlon Humphrey, Mark Andrews, Ronnie Stanley. They have big contracts with some years left that we can move some money around and create enough cap space. Eric DeCosta recognized the importance of cap space and said that he wants to have enough money to be able to make a trade before the trade deadline. And we've seen that every year now. You know, it seems like almost every year he pulled the trigger on Marcus Peters a few years ago, Yannick Ngakoue, that one didn't work out as well. And then last year, Roquan Smith. It's a home run, honestly. Second round pick for Roquan Smith. I'm doing that every day of the week, 10 times over. So he's definitely aware that we need to create some money. I love the question. This is exactly what he said. He said, you always want to have more money. We have different ways of doing that. I think that we've shown we'll spend up to the cap every year, and we'll do that. I think that the landscape of this team has changed a little bit because we struck a contract with Lamar. So the way we'll operate will be a little different in the future. I think we'll continue to try and do early signings as much as possible, which is interesting, and that ties right back into what we were just talking about with J.K. Dobbins, right? Trying to do early signings with players that they want to keep around. And they have to evaluate which players that is. You know, we only do that with a few guys. We did do that with Marlon Humphrey. We did do that with Mark Andrews. We tried to do it with Lamar. Obviously, negotiations were a lot tougher and it dragged out. But we recognize who like the greats are, right? And that ties back into the video I just showed of Eric DeCosta talking about. He watched Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Suggs, Jamal Lewis. He realized that they changed the entire game and that they were worth keeping around basically whatever it takes. I think that you could toss in Lamar, Marlon Humphrey, Mark Andrews, Ronnie Stanley, and Roquan Smith into that current category of difference makers, of game changers that are already on our team. I know we traded for Roquan, but we still had to extend him. You know, that was his last contract. He was about to hit free agency. So we had to get a deal done or he was going to test the market, and who knows what would happen. So we've done a good job of evaluating who's a difference maker, who's really, really going to change this game and break this game open for us and make these game-changing plays and just be completely dedicated to winning football games and playing like a Raven. We need to lock those guys up before their contract ends. And if they view J.K. Dobbins as one of those guys and they trust his health, I think it's extremely smart to get a value deal done. I call it a value deal because I think you always get a value. You always get a slight discount when you sign your own player before they hit free agency. And also, the cap situation has got to be more difficult with Lamar's deal on the books now, right? Especially in these future years. So it's nice to know who's going to be on your team for the long term. Get these long-term extensions done early so that we can plan years in the future and kind of always be on top of the cap space. It's not like, oh, this random free agent became available, we really need him, and then you overspend to get him or something like that, and you didn't plan enough for the future. In the past, we've had some flexibility to do that, especially on Lamar's rookie deal. You know, we're like, oh, Marcus Williams is a free agent. He didn't re-sign. Boom. Top safety deal. Come on over. Like, we could spend some money to put talent around. We didn't do it at the wide receiver position, or it didn't work out until this year. But regardless, we've had more flexibility than we're going to have moving forward. We got to be a lot more cap friendly and strategic about our moves. But that doesn't mean that the guys who break the game open and are absolute difference makers for us, that they're not going to keep those guys around. I think that they will prioritize that and find a way to keep those guys in a Ravens uniform for a long time. Here's Eric DeCosta talking about the team this year and comparing it to 2019 a little bit, at least about how different we're going to be, and then also how different Lamar seems to be this year.
Well, I was intrigued in 19 because I knew that we were going to do something that was different, and it was going to be a very tough offense to defend. But, you know, I think you go into every season excited. I mean, if you're doing your job the right way and you're excited about it, you know, you bring in players that you like, you're always excited. I do think this is it could be a really cool thing to see this group kind of come together. You know, if you look at just across the board on offense, all the different position groups were pretty strong. We have pretty good depth. And I know that because other teams were calling us on all these offensive guys, looking at, hey, you have a lot of tight ends. You've got an extra running back. You've got a lot of offensive linemen and receivers. So I think that bodes well for the season. Obviously, these guys have to play. We expect them to. Got a lot of faith in Todd and the coaches and the players. We've got to stay healthy, but on paper, it looks pretty good. Lamar's attitude has been excellent this year. I think last year was a challenging year for a lot of reasons, but obviously just where he was with his contract. But this year, just his attitude, his enthusiasm has been fantastic. He's thrown the ball very, very well. He's been able to build a great rapport with the receivers very, very quickly. He's taking care of his body. He seems really into the offense. I think he's excited about it. He has an awesome relationship with his coaches. And, he worked very hard this offseason with some of the receivers that we brought in, which was awesome to see. And I think it's showing off, and it's going to pay dividends for us.
Man, I love hearing that. I love hearing how excited and happy and comfortable and locked in Lamar is. And we heard reports last year. I know they were coming from Skip Bayless, I think, but we heard reports from sources that Lamar was not engaged in meetings and not fully dived in because of all this contract stuff going on. And I don't know how much truth to put into that. I think Lamar was probably present for everything he needed to be, but that doesn't mean that he was enthusiastic about it. And that rubs off to the rest of the team, if that was the case. If it's not, then forget about it. But I'm just saying, for Eric DeCosta to also be like, oh, there's a change in Lamar, how enthusiastic, his attitude, there's a change this year. And that tells me that there probably was at least a small amount of truth to him not being super engaged last year. When he got hurt, he wasn't traveling with the team to the away games. He wasn't at the playoff game. And I'm not bringing those things back up to make it a big deal or say anything negative. I'm just pointing out the fact that Eric DeCosta is making it a point to mention how different this season feels. He's getting 2019 vibes. We heard Ronnie Stanley in a press conference a few weeks ago say this offensive line reminds me of 2019. We can be better than 2019. Eric DeCosta saying, we haven't been this excited since 2019 when it felt new, when we knew we were going to attack the league with something different that we felt was really going to work, that entire organization was excited about. And that's how this year is. We bring in Todd Monk and we get a bunch of new weapons. Lamar's contract is done. We don't have to worry about it. We're loaded on offense. We're bringing back the majority of the defense. We got to get healthy at corner, that's for sure. But regardless, we have a really competitive team, and there's a lot to be excited about, especially with the style of football that we plan on playing this season. I understand and echo his excitement, and I'm feeling like 2019 too. Obviously, we didn't know when 2019 started that it was going to go that well. 14-2, Lamar Jackson, unanimous MVP. Lamar came in the year before as a rookie and got us to the playoffs and played pretty well, but the playoff game was terrible. And, we expected good things. We were excited about the next season, but I don't think anybody was thinking 14-2 until obviously after it happened, we realized what we had and how magical that season was. Terrible ending. I was at that Titans playoff game. Terrible, terrible ending. I don't even want to talk about it. But regardless, now I think since we know what we're capable of with less weapons, by the way, but we know what Lamar's ability is now. It's proven. He's proven it. He's a winning quarterback. He wins games. He makes plays. He changes the game. He's one of those guys that Eric DeCosta was just talking about. The Ray Lewis, the Ed Reed, the Suggs, the game changer, the guy that can take over the game. That's Lamar Jackson. That's always been Lamar Jackson. And that's always going to be how Lamar Jackson is. So I think this offseason we have even more hype and excitement because we know the potential of it. It's not going to shock us as much as 2019 did. 2019 was just a shock. We were just on a ride, man. It was a fun ride, but we were on a ride. I wish I had the channel going back then. But this year could be even better. You know what I mean? This year could be an incredible ride that ends with some hardware, that ends with the Lombardi. And I truly believe that we're able to do that this year. We got to stay healthy. Eric DeCosta said the same thing. We definitely got to stay healthy. I think that that's the biggest thing. And that's probably one of the biggest things for all teams. If any team loses a couple key guys, couple top receivers or their quarterback, it's over. The season's over. And that's what happened to us last year and the year before, with Lamar going out and not being able to finish the year. So we definitely got to stay healthy. But I think if we can stay healthy, we're absolutely loaded, and we have just as good of a chance as anybody in this league to win a Super Bowl. And I can't wait. This is the last weekend with no professional football on. Next Sunday, the Ravens play the Texans. and we'll finally get to see what this offense looks like. We'll finally get to see Lamar Jackson back on the field. It's been a long time. That Denver Broncos game was the last time. I was also at that game. Lamar goes out in like the first quarter. It's one of the worst and then best games that I've went to. We had the Prochet wide reverse interception into triple coverage in the end zone. We had no offense the entire game, and then Tyler Huntley leads us on a game-winning touchdown drive at the end of the game, and then we win 10-9 when Denver misses a field goal short. That's the last time we've seen Lamar Jackson, and that was a long time ago. This guy has not been in an actual NFL game in a while. So I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see this offense. Odell, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. And I'm glad that I'm on this journey with you guys. I appreciate you supporting the channel as always. I appreciate you tuning into another episode of the Flock Rundown. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.